This is the MarvoDIY Redefined 68. Well, except when you get it out of the box, it's not going to look like this. It's going to look more like this. It's a 65% bare bones keyboard from MarvoDIY with 68 keys, hence the name Redefined 68. This is available for sale right now. You can get the bare bones kit for $75, or you can choose to buy it with various keycap sets for about $148, all on Marvo's website. Now, I was just sent the bare bones kit, so these keycaps are not one of the options. I'm going to show you guys what I did with the board, and we're going to get into it because this board has some neat little things going on with it. And so here we go. Inside the box, you'll receive the keyboard, a USB Type-C cable, a wireless adapter, a keycap and switch puller combo, an instruction manual, and that's it. You don't get switches, and unless you pay the extra for the keycaps, you don't get those. But even with the keycaps, it looks like you don't get switches either, which is fine because if you're buying a bare bones kit, it's with the idea that you are building a board yourself with whatever switches you want. It is compatible with 3 and 5 pin switches, so you can basically shop to your heart's content for any of the cool switches out there that you would want. The case is made of plastic with an aluminum frame around the keys. You've got your typical white reflective plate that you would find on a lot of stock budget keyboards. Underneath that, there's a bit of dampening foam, the PCB, and then apparently there's a little bit more foam under the PCB between the case and the PCB, so that will help dampen things a little bit. You've got a power switch on the top, a USB-C port right next to it. In the back, you've got this metal plate that is a kind of a nice touch. There's 4 rubber feet on the bottom as well as 2 pop-out feet, and it's this particular pop-out foot here that has some nice little surprises hidden underneath. And no, it's not candy, I checked. This board actually has 5 dip switches, which I have seen on boards like Ducky boards, but I've never actually used. I've never had a board with these included, so it's pretty interesting and a nice little learning experience, and I'll go a little bit into what each switch does. Switch 1 will change the Windows key on the left into another function key. Switch 2 will swap the left caps lock and left control. For whatever reason, you might want to do that. 3 will lock the Windows key, basically entering gaming mode, as a lot of gaming keyboards call it, essentially disabling the Windows key, so if you're playing a game and you accidentally hit the Windows key, you don't open the Windows menu and mess up your game. The board has an energy-saving sleep function, and switch 4 will actually disable that. So if for whatever reason that is an annoyance to you, you don't like the board constantly going to sleep, you can turn that off altogether, of course at the expense of battery life. Switch number 5 will toggle between Windows and Mac, basically swapping some of the modifier keys to fit the Mac layout. It also has 3 connectability functions. You've got your wired USB mode, 2.4 GHz wireless with the included dongle, and Bluetooth mode. Do note that after you plug the board in, you do have to press function and E to enable the USB mode. Alright, so the board's got all these cool features, that's great, but how does it sound, how does it feel to type on, and all that good stuff? So for this build, I went with the tried and true Gateron yellows. Why? Because they're amongst the smoothest and kind of better sounding budget priced keyboard switch, and I think still around like 10 cents a switch, whereas some of the higher end, more enthusiast level switches can go up to almost $1 a switch. It's pretty insane. And again, that's not including the keycaps, which is a whole other thing. But I didn't just go with regular Gateron yellows, I actually went with the Milky Top, which still costs around the same, but they're a little harder to find because people are always talking about how the Milky Top material makes it sound better. And while it's all preference based, there is some truth to that, at least in my opinion. I do really like how the Milky Top ones sound. These are lubed with Krytox 205 grade 0, and these are also filmed with Durock films. Aside from that, I have not done any modification to the switches or to the board itself. I have not taken the board apart. This is going to give you an idea of what the board is going to sound like straight out of the box. And then of course you have the keycaps. The keycaps are also going to influence a bit of how the board sounds based on the thickness, the material, the profile, and so on. You do need something that's going to fit a 65% layout, particularly the 1U size right modifiers and the 1.75 right shift key. If you buy just a normal 108 key keycap set, that's not going to have these. You need something that's going to have like more than that. And a lot of times if you go shopping around for keycap sets like that, you'll get a picture of all the keycaps that it comes with. I also highly recommend Polycaps from Kinetic Labs. They're not a sponsor or an affiliate of the channel, I just have a couple of their sets and they're amongst my favorites for not all that much. They're about 65 bucks. I went with just a random set that I have in my collection. It's some budget Amazon set that rips off a more expensive GMK set. I know, it's controversial, whatever. It's actually not my keycap set, it was a gift for somebody else and I'm just using it because they're not using it right now. The point is, we put keycaps on the board so we can test it out. Let's go. Now I think that sounds pretty good. It doesn't sound super hollow like a lot of plastic cases might, because there is some dampening material included in the board. It sounds decent, but I'm mainly experiencing rattle in the enter key. Not terrible, but it is noticeable compared at least to the other stabs. But again, with this being hot swap, it's pretty easy to fix. Now maybe you noticed a little bit of a problem with the keys in the middle row of the keyboard. And that's because the LEDs on this PCB are north facing. Now the problem with north facing switches and LEDs is with cherry profile keycaps, you get some interference in the middle row, so the middle row sounds a little off in comparison to the other rows. For example, but then you get to the middle row, maybe it's not so easy to pick up with a microphone here, but I hear it in my ear, a little deadened, a little off. That has to do with the lower profile and the shape of cherry profile keycaps in the middle row in particular. Basically, the switch is hitting the keycap so that it doesn't quite go down all the way. Now, one problem with this little configuration, at least for purposes of this video, is that the keycaps that I'm using are not shine through, and the switches are also not RGB switches. The part where the light would come out is basically blocked by the switch itself. So just to show you guys a little bit of how the RGB looks, I swapped out some of the switches and keycaps. You do also have software, despite the fact that you have the dip switches and the ability to customize the RGB a little bit on the board itself. You do have software that you can use to play around with the lighting, either choosing between various preset effects or just customizing it to your liking. You can also customize what the keys do and, of course, set macros. All in all, it's not a bad little board for the price and the availability. I'd say if you really want to give this keyboard a go, give it a shot. It's 65%, which personally is my personal favorite layout. If you like that board, I will have a link in the description, and if you like this video, make sure to click that like button, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know how much you liked this video if you did. If you didn't like the video, you can nicely tell me why, maybe. Be positive, do something nice for somebody today. And yeah, I'm out of here. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.